Hello, and thank you for joining the Starting and Scaling Shop at Home series. Today's edition is session 3 of our 3-part series, where we dig into the 3 main areas of why and planning in session 1. In part 2, we hit resources, but today's focus is around all the initial processes, things to consider if you're looking to start and then rapidly scale a shop at home flooring business. I'm Neil Daly, Vice President of Product and Merchandising here at Broadway. And with 31 years of experience in the flooring industry, a big portion of that, more than 20, has been supporting locally owned businesses. In fact, about a decade of that was supporting shop at home franchises, hundreds and hundreds of locations with Floor Coverings International. I also had the opportunity to work for Empire and Loon in different points of my career in consulting roles. And what I'm sharing with you is just what I've had the luxury of seeing with hundreds of case studies. Now, again, today's session is around initial processes for shop at home. And I want to start when we start talking about processes with something that my dad taught me long ago. As a successful entrepreneur, he said, Neil, some of the things that allow me to be successful in business is I never let the 20% limit my success with the 80%, which I thought was really interesting. In fact, when we look at how we typically build processes, they're usually around that 20%. It's that one-off situation that we make a lot of decisions around for processes, rather than asking ourselves, what allows us to create the best user experience and the highest level of success around the masses, and not worry about the 20% that we're just not going to win every time, and being okay with that. If we spend our time in building our processes around what's going to land that 80% opportunity instead of the one-offs, all of this is going to be much more successful for you and for your business. So when it comes to processes, there's 5 different areas that I'm going to recommend that you hit. First, all processes should be written down. It allows for you to clearly define the expectations of processes within your business. It allows for constant review of the processes for effectiveness. It also allows you to share the specifics if you have job changes within your organization. Now, the ability to update these as they are needed should be a given. The goal here is to at least start with something where you think it should be done a certain way, then again, come back, review, and then update when you see there's opportunities for change. When you create processes, it has to be something that is scalable, not something that can only be done by 1 or 2 people in a business. It has to be something that's repeatable if you have to hire a new person to come into that role. So again, this is where the written and optimization components of processes really come into play. And usually when we create processes, we start with, what do I need for a process? From a profit or from a business need standpoint, that's certainly a part. But if you start your process on the opposite side, for sales process at least, asking yourself, what does the customer need to say yes? And then backing in processes that allow for profit optimization should be part of your plan. Now, I'm going to run you through how I would do this and what I've seen, again, that works. But customer-centric first wins every time in business today. So I look at success funnels based on the user experience and the 5 drivers of that. So if you think at the top of that customer cycle, that funnel, how many customers can you possibly reach and how many can you reach? Quality and quantity of leads is the very top edge of the funnel. From there, how many of them will buy from you? Your close rate. From the close rate, how much did they purchase? Average sale. Then from each sale, what was your average gross profit margin? And finally, your expense ratios. When you look at your business in this 5-step process, it usually makes it really easy. So that's, again, how I'm going to walk you through process building. First, starting with the quality and quantity of leads, that top funnel. When working at shop at home marketing budget, you're going to do things a little bit differently here. So first, as I mentioned in previous sessions, you need a specific budget just for the shop at home component for your business. That marketing budget for shop at home has to be targeted to do one thing: create action. Now, the number one thing that you should focus on throughout your entire marketing plan and that first contact with every customer is book the appointment. Everything is about getting that appointment scheduled to meet with that customer. Nothing else matters on the front end of the sale. This is not where you want to invest in any type of image ads, meaning ads that don't drive a specific call to action to pick up the phone and call you, or to send you a text or email, however you want to message that, but you've got to book the appointment anywhere and everywhere. A lot of stores are also adding widgets to their websites that allow for easy scheduling. Talk to your account manager if that's something you'd like to do as well for your broadband website. From there, your marketing budget in Shop at Home is just like in your retail store. It must be measured in order for it to be optimized. If you're not using retail lead management today, it's our least expensive product line at Broadloom, and it is highly impactful when you use it. Whether you're using RLM or some other CRM system that allows you to track lead costs and the success of each lead or not, it's really important that you track every dollar here, because what you're going to find is the investments in marketing for Shop at Home are not going to be the exact same success levels that you have with your brick and mortar store. So again, separate budget, drive the appointment, not image ads. And third, make sure that you're getting optimization against that. And we'll talk about that in the expense portion of today's session. When it comes to lead generation, there's 5 different areas that most folks will focus on. First and foremost, digital marketing is your best ROI when it comes to any marketing investment out there. It is also the easiest to track what's working and what's not for optimization. Behind that, events and canvassing is something that's really important to reach the masses. Digital marketing is a great validator if they've seen you at the local fair or at the home show, or if you're actively canvassing out with realtors and property managers and other things with your sales team. The Shop at Home can support any of those retail buyers that come from that canvassing effect. Lead gen should absolutely be the focus of all of your events and canvassing as you launch a Shop at Home business. Vehicle wraps are another great investment. At the beginning, start cheap, just add a vehicle sign. One of those magnetic signs are great as long as the car panels are metal, that will stick. But you have to make sure that you're getting out in front of your customers with local advertising as well. Everything from door hangers when you do a job in the houses on either side and across the street, little lawn signs, all of that stuff matters for getting your brand in front of customers in the areas that you want to do business. Some folks have had success with lead aggregators, most haven't. There's a lot of third-party lead aggregators out there. As an example, if you look at Home Advisor or Angie's or companies like that, that charge you a fee for marketing out for their leads. In most markets, the cost is extremely high, and they're actively driving customers to get multiple quotes so that they essentially can build the same lead out multiple times. They're usually not a good ROI. But once you've exhausted your digital marketing for optimization and you've got events and canvassing already underway, it's something you might want to try and see if it works in your particular market. The last one here is one that is not traditional, but it's worthy of doing. Taking that customer, calling into your retail store, and seeing if you can convert that customer to a Shop at Home lead. Because if the customer would rather have Shop at Home than visit your store, I highly encourage it, because your close rates and your gross profit margin will be higher if you do the things that we are teaching in these sessions. In regards to how to do that, it's just really simple. I used to have our stores ask on every inbound phone call, "Thank you for calling. Would you like to schedule an in-home appointment for our Shop at Home team, or would you like to speak to somebody in our retail showroom?" Just by asking that choice of two, it play under the seat for the customer to know you provide that service and create that additional Shop at Home opportunity. So again, our mission is singular on all the front-end marketing and lead generation. Book the appointment. And as much as we are talented and knowledgeable in the flooring industry, we're usually the ones that are the biggest barrier to achieving that mission. Your knowledge and the needs that you have for your business of data collection and things like that can sometimes be a big barrier to getting that appointment scheduled. A perfect example is when we see folks at home shows that are talking to customers for long periods of time, talking about the different flooring types and trying to, show them different samples at the show and all these things to set themselves up as an expert rather than keeping it quick and simple and getting an appointment scheduled. It's a different mindset. We actually had higher bookings for home shows and different events locally when we hired college kids to basically come in and run the booths for us instead of us, because we paid them on one thing: booked appointments. Our knowledge and trying to help customers answer all their questions about products sucked up all their time as the experts versus paid lead generators. So just think about that as you're looking at how you staff and manage. Obviously, you want to properly represent your brand, but never forget the goal when you're doing these investments in marketing. Getting that appointment booked has to be the first focus of your time there. Now, when you schedule these appointments, there's what the customer needs and there's what we need to be able to deliver for the customer. We need to make sure that the influencers are present. Now, I didn't use the term decision makers. That's off-putting to customers. Tells them we're going to do a high pressure sales on them. It's very scary versus just asking the customer when they're booking an appointment, is there anybody else who would have influence on either the design or the budget that should be present while we're there to go over everything? Just asking the question will go a long way, because ultimately, if there's more than one person making this influence, we'd like to have them there. Number two, they need to understand how much time it's going to take for the appointment. Measuring a whole house for flooring takes some time. They don't understand our processes and what the needs of the business are. So I'm going to encourage you, instead of just booking a time, book a window of time with the customer. So as an example, if the customer wants a 6 p.m. appointment, explain as part of your setup call, this is homeowner or Mr. Homeowner, we're going to be there about an hour. So figure 6 to 7 o'clock, so that we can get all of the measurements to make sure everything is accurate to get you the most efficient use of materials and lowest possible cost as part of that. What's in it for the customer? It gets them to lower cost. We're going to show you multiple products so you can see the different options for colors and textures in your home. And we'll be able to work up a price for you right there. That'll work for you, won't it? And they'll say yes. And when you do that, you're setting the right expectation that you can't be in and out of their home in 10 minutes. Because the two things the customer wants when you arrive is they want to choose the product and they want to get a price. But there's a lot more things that we have to do to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success, other than giving them a price and just showing them a product. So block out that solid hour of time as part of your upfront call process. Also explain to them that you're going to need access to measure their spaces. Now, this might seem intuitive to you, but them understanding that if they're buying the house and they don't have the keys yet, thinking that you can measure from the outside walls or something like that, or that they don't have access into the space because other tradesmen are going to be working in there, whatever the case may be, it's important they understand whatever we're going to be measuring, we can get in there to actually get the measurements. I can tell you personally, I've run hundreds and hundreds of leads for Shop at Home, and you'd be surprised at some of the things you run into once you've done it for a while. And that was a big learning for us. So once you've got the appointment set, now you need to plan on how you can optimize your close rates in that house in a way that is very customer centric, that gets you lots of repeat and referral business with happy customers, but still allows you to ask for an order in a way that makes sense and differentiates you from your competition. So to grow close rate, there are 4 areas that are really important for the customer. 1, they have to be able to trust you. They have to trust you personally and the business that you represent. To do that, you have to build a process that includes telling them your company story. They need to know what services you provide, that make sure that what you do lines up with their needs, and explaining that you do all flooring types, including, and be specific, hardwood, laminate, vinyl, carpet, etc. Or if you don't do tile, as an example, explaining that, but still listing everything else that you provide. If you do full installation turnkey services, including furniture moving and removal, etc., they need to understand you provide those tools and services so they can be included in the project or they want those services included. They have to also believe in your products, that they're the right products for their home, and they're going to perform what they need it to do in the customer's house. They also have to know that you have choices when it comes to prices, that you have products that are very affordable, you have products that are luxury grade, and you have everything in between. So that if the products they initially pick aren't right for their budget, or the products that you present aren't as nice as they'd like to have, they can ask you for the options, rather than just saying, thanks, I'll think about it, and talking to somebody else about that option. So to do these 4 things that are critical for the customer, you have to have a process defined for inside of the house. That process needs to have a minimum of 8 steps in it. Now, I'm not suggesting that you have a canned presentation. Every customer experience should be unique with that customer, but these 8 steps have to be hit for the customer to have confidence in you, your company, to understand your products are the right products for them, and services line up so they can say yes once you present a price. First step, how you arrive represents you and your brand more than anything. Customers will make a buying decision within the first few minutes of you being at their home. Arrive on time with a logoed vehicle and proper attire. I highly recommend that you keep your hands visible in view of the customer and you're not standing right up against the front door. Step back out to the edge of the porch, give that customer a little space, and open up their front door and welcome you in. That logoing matters, whether again it's the magnetic or the full sign or the full wrap on the vehicle. But having either a name tag or a lanyard that has your name and photograph and your business name on it, all of those things make the customer understand who you are and it's okay to let you in their house. Second, it separates you from the Chuck in the truck who shows up without those things. With a white van, a t-shirt, and jeans, there's an expectation of just a low price, a contractor equivalent. When you show up with a professional appearance and logoed vehicle, you're building confidence from step one in delivering a different experience. Number two, you have to warm up a little bit with the customer when you arrive. And that warm-up introduction is usually not intuitive for the customers. Many times, especially in bigger cities, it's normal for folks who want to get right down to business. So the natural inclination is for the customer to say, let me show you the room that we want to have measured. And that's actually not what you need to do first. You need to slow down just a little bit to create some camaraderie with the customer before you jump into business. It could be 2 minutes, it could be 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, whatever it takes on the front end of walking in that customer's house for the customer to start feeling a little bit more comfortable with you and with the company that you represent. And the way that I found works best is ask the customer, is there a place where I can just set up my laptop so I can make some notes as we go through today, or my tablet, whatever you're going to be using there on site. And they'll usually guide you over to the kitchen table or over to a place where there's like a coffee table you can set your stuff up on. As you're walking into that space, find something in the room that you feel comfortable talking about as that common ground discussion point, whether it's seeing a photograph of the person with their kids' college graduation or whatever it can be that you pick up on. Something that's non-offensive, so don't get into, of course, politics and religion as part of your warm-up, but things that you see in the home should give you a tip-off. If they've got gorgeous landscaping, talk about their gorgeous landscaping and what they enjoy about it. Avoid weather in your warm-up. Everybody talks about weather and it's always crappy, and you don't want to start off talking about negatives in your appointment. You want it to be about positives, and the best way to warm up is get the customer talking about them, not about you. So this is where you want to cue something up and just listen and ask questions as part of your warm-up. The goal here is they see you as a person, not just a salesperson. From there, of course, got to get your measurements. Asking about the specifics of the project. Do they plan to be in the home for the extended period of time? Your normal qualification stuff, so that you get the right product for the customer. During that time of measure, it's one of two things. Either the customer is accompanying you through as you take your measurements, or the customer's got downtime while you do that. My recommendation is, if they're not going to accompany you, and sometimes we prefer they not look over our shoulder while we're doing everything, pulling up your website where you got your reviews, and ideally before and after pictures on your website or your social media pages. Great place for the customer to be looking at those things is while you measure. So again, it creates that validation that you can make their home beautiful, and there are folks who are putting their trust in you to do that. It's that validation. Once you've measured, again, get just enough to quote. You don't need everything drawn out like a blueprint, because your goal for measuring is to take no more than 10 or 15 minutes to complete all your measuring. If the customer says, yes, we'd like to go ahead with it, you can then always go back and get all those tiny little intricate details right to the edge where you have to have it in your perfect drawings. But getting close enough for an estimate on the front end that is the goal, not enough for ordering. From there, you're going to go out to your vehicle and you're going to pull some products that line up with what you've heard the customer tell you that they needed for their home, product type and the durability needs, et cetera. But you don't want to start there when you get back in the house, because once the customer sees a product, the only thing they want to do is then give me the price. And again, this is where we have to interject some additional information in there before the price is delivered in the products. First, again, your company story. This is where you tell them why they should trust you and your company to do business with them. Your company's story should include the fact that you're fully insured, that you're going to take care of their entire process from beginning to end. If you're accredited with the Better Business Bureau, that rating, you're 4.9 stars on Google reviews. This is your chance to explain that you are a family-owned business. You've been in the community for 25 years, or whatever your story is, and explain to them why they should put their trust in you. Again, those 4 buckets has to be landed here, including your company, the services, why they should trust you personally to handle their sale, and your experiences. Landing that every time takes practice, and I'm going to highly recommend you do it off of the laptop deck. Excuse me. I highly recommend you do that off of a laptop or tablet in a PowerPoint form, because customers don't want to just hear you talk about it, and they aren't going to remember it nearly as well as if you show it to them in writing. A short little PowerPoint that explains who you are, what you do, the high accolades from your community. That stuff matters, because your competition is not going to take the time to do that unless you're competing against Empire and 50 Floors and Express Floors, and every big shop and home company out there is doing this because it works. The customer has to have the confidence in you before they say yes to a product or price. So again, land that company story before you get into product selection. Because after you finish your company story, explain what the installation process will look like for their home, roughly how long it will take to do the project, that the installer is going to arrive in lettered vans or with signs on it, how they're going to come into the home and verify that they've got the right product for the home, how they're going to remove everything, what the customer needs to move if there's things they need to move. All of that gets done before product and price. Because again, when we present the product, we want to then be able to go directly to price and get a yes. Anything that comes between product and price, other than a yes, we love it for product, is going to have a lower success rate. Company story, installation process, then you show product, then you show price, gets you more sales. When you go through the product presentation, explain that you're going to take care of the transitions, baseboard, all the different things. I highly recommend you have a prop of each of those, a little sample. So when you're talking about what a quarter round or a shoe molding is or a T molding, you can show the customer a plain white profile of each of those. Plain white takes color out of the mix. It's for selection, just spray paint them if you need to for a little swatch. And it's easy for the customer to understand what you're including. Why would we do that? Again, it differentiates us from others who are quoting prices. It plants a little seed of doubt. Is the other company going to do all the things that we're explaining we're going to do? The difference here is we're just going to get credit for it by including it in our presentation. It's like when you look at a car with a sticker on the window, there's 50 line items in there that they include to justify their price. But we have to explain we're going to do all of these things. So when we deliver that price, there's a reason for it. When you get to price presentation, again, it needs to have a visible price on a computer screen for the customer. Even if it's a simple Excel form that you've doctored up to look pretty, you need something that shows your company logo in the top left, a retail price for the project, what the deposit would be, and then if you're offering consumer financing, which I highly recommend that you do, what a payment term would be in monthly payments for that project. By providing a total, a deposit, and a monthly payment option for the consumer, now you can have a real conversation around what's affordable to them or not. Is it the deposit that may not be affordable right now? Is it the monthly payment? Or is it the total that's not right for the customer? Having all three on the customer at the same time allows you to have that conversation, and if need be, help the customer get what they want, whether it's a less expensive or a nicer product, whether it means extending out the finance terms to a longer term to make that a smaller monthly payment option. Regardless of what the need is there, we can have that conversation with the customer by showing all three and just listening for feedback once we present it. They'll tell us if they're ready to make a buying decision there or not. And if they say, oh, anything other than, yes, let's take it, or asking if they can look at something different there, then simply just asking, of these three, is there any of them that doesn't match what you need for a budget? Just ask the question. Try to help. Solving that objection is easiest done when you're in front of the customer and you have options. This is why, again, if you look at the 80-20 rule that we were talking about at the beginning, Yes, there's a lot of customers out there who would love it if you just measured and left and sent them a swatch. It's very non-confrontational, but it's also not helping more customers get taken care of. I truly believe that if we care about our customers, we'll ask for an order every time because it allows us to help that customer buy from us to be taken care of rather than, unfortunately, if they buy from the Chuck in the truck or the lowest possible price out there, they may not get what they're looking for product or services or worse. So these 8 steps are the bare minimum. There's lots of different sales techniques out there that are highly effective. I'm not suggesting you have to script this again, but having something that has at least these 8 components to your process in the home will absolutely make a difference in your customer satisfaction for your time there and for your success rate. When it comes to growing that next level of the funnel, that average sale component, there's 3 different things I want to ask you to look at initially. One, when presenting options to the customer, are you going to present what is the best quality option as your option 1? I will tell you, unless the customer just says right up front, I'm looking for the cheapest product option, showing the best option for option 1 should be considered every time. It will certainly get a discussion out there around. She said that she would ultimately love to, as an example, replace all 3 bedrooms, but she's thinking that she only has a budget for the master bedroom right now. Giving her a quote for all 3 bedrooms as option 1 is how you get a higher average sale. She might, when she sees the actual price, be surprised at how low it is, or that the payment options allow for her to purchase all 3 instead of just the 1. This is helping the customer get what he or she really wants. And then having an option 2 prepared, that's just the master bedroom as an example, that partial as an option 2. If option 1 just isn't within budget, it is a great solution to grow average sales and get customers happier with their projects. Getting that add-on room is a big differentiator. Showing the better qualities, all built in as a full turnkey service. Adding all the rip-up furniture, move everything so your customer doesn't have to in that first proposal is ideal. And the last one here I'll share is add the stairs if you're doing the upstairs hallway or the first floor flooring. What we found is that more than a third of customers will do the stairs as part of the project. If you just ask, would you like me to go ahead and add the stairs as part of our proposal? Again, you can always back it out if you need to go to a partial to make it affordable for the customer. But when you add that into your proposals, it goes up a lot. The average staircase is over $3,000 to do it in a hardwood staircase today. Typically almost 5 if you're doing a runner on top of the new wood staircase. So that's a great add-on when you have the opportunity. The other things that you may not think of that drive average sale is, again, that perception of who you are and the value you bring. And the analogy I like to use here is if you go into a fast food restaurant, there's an expectation of a lack of service and a certain level of quality. But if you walked into a place that was an elevated experience that had, the white linen tablecloths and the crystal glasses on the table, it's a very different price and experience. Both are going to get food in your stomach, but customers will pay a premium if they think their experience is also going to be premium. And you and how you represent yourself while you're in the home and making a customer comfortable matters. So your appearance, professional appearance, should include, again, some khakis and a polo at a minimum for attire, that business casual. Logoed. If you're going to wear something nicer than a polo that's logoed, please consider wearing a name tag or a lanyard that has your photo ID and your company name on it for validation. That dressing up just a hair above what the contractor is going to look like matters, and it builds confidence, and it allows that customer to feel more comfortable spending more with a higher quality of perception. Professional presentation also matters. Having that PowerPoint there to explain, here's who you are, what you do, the hundreds of customers that you've taken care of in your community or thousands. That stuff matters. And again, that perception of who you are and what you bring to the table, your value prop matters. Highlighting those great reviews while you're measuring, that stuff matters when it comes to capturing that higher average sale, because part of that higher average sale is going to also come from having a higher gross profit margin on your products. When you do these things, what you'll find is the average sale is going to grow 10 to 20%. The average is right around 15 versus your retail business. If you look at the biggest driver for that is private label brands. So if your brick and mortar store today is at 50 points gross profit margin, you don't need private labels. But if it's not, you've got to put a different style name on that product when you bring it out to the house. Because at 45 to 50% gross profit margin is where you want to be with Shop at Home. So you can afford three things. Number one, the higher marketing costs it's going to take for Shop at Home, typically 7 to 10% of target sales versus the couple percentage points that you have for brick and mortar. With Shop at Home, you don't have that repeat referral customer base like you do for your established business. So you've got to spend a lot more marketing to generate those appointments. Again, 7 to 10% is normal. Number two, you have to be able to have a higher profit margin to hire the best people. Top talents 101, 8 to 10%, depending on your market, of top line sales, and they deserve it and earn it if their closing rates are the right numbers, around 50%. At 50 points gross profit margin, they earn that 8 to 10% gross profit. And number three, so that you can cover the costs of doing business in the field, which are actually less than brick and mortar, and still have money set aside for scaling your business and growth. That rainy day fund, when you have to put that extra vehicle on the road as you're scaling up, having the cash there to do it matters. So bankrolling it and scaling it should come from higher average sale. And the second is the gross profit margin lining up with it as well. And that 10 to 20% growth in gross profit margin for most stores is significant. So if you're not already, again, at 45% or higher for retail, get those private labels created. And it can be something as simple as a label maker and a spreadsheet that you use for cross-referencing yourself. Or there's multiple programs out there that have great private label systems. If it's something that only you show in the market, you can't be shopped, your price will never be too high. So to summarize, growing that average sale and gross profit margin really comes down to a couple things. Great setup calls matter in that first contact impression. Arriving on time sets the right impression. How you look, they make their decision whether they're going to be impressed with you or not within a matter of 30 seconds. Elevating your presentation in the home, how you interact with that customer and how they perceive you as a person, not just a salesperson, changes their perception versus the competition. Those great reviews, making sure that they've read a few, all your measurements, all of those things add up to a much higher average sale and gross profit margin, with the number one factor there being private labels. And number two, you've got to tell that company story consistently and let the customer see it on your presentation. The last piece I'll share in our funnel is expenses. When you look at your expenses, I'm going to tell you with a new startup, it's critical that you start cheap. The cheapest way possible is no vehicles being purchased, having a salesperson use their own vehicle, taking some existing samples that you've got in your showroom and putting them in the vehicle, making sure that they're safe. And I'll talk about that in a sec, but don't cheapen out on when it comes to safety. Second, you've got to manage every cost. And I'll get into the specifics of how to do that. But you've got to have a way of tracking every cost in this new venture and then benchmarking it against where you need it to be. And when you look at your investments, the reason this is so scalable for Shop at Home is the number of sales professionals that you have. And when you decide to invest in fleet vehicles, the number of vehicles that you support is based on one thing. How many leads can you consistently deliver to the person running? 8 leads per rep per week is what you need. So until you get to 8 leads consistently, I highly recommend, part of starting cheap means either the owner or the general manager run those leads until there's consistently 8 leads, to hire somebody specifically for this, that you can train them your process of exactly how you want it done, and then coach and lead them until you get enough leads to add a second, third, and fourth. They can flex up to about a dozen leads per week, depending on the radius that you're covering for your territory, fairly easily. You don't want to go higher than 12 per week. So again, you step in, or the GM steps in and fills a gap there between a dozen and 16. And when you're consistently landing 16, you hire that next person and bring them in. It's important that you base all of your scaling on lead flow, because if they're not getting leads, they're not going to stay. And that's how you keep top talent. You keep feeding them quality leads. Why am I suggesting 8? Because they should also be canvassing and self-generating some repeat referral leads themselves as part of the process. The math is this: they should be running 10 to 12 leads a week with you providing 8 once they've been trained in how to do the role and how to canvas. Once you get there, your business is going to be really successful. So starting off small. Again, your employees' vehicles, paying the mileage is the way to go when you first start out. Please invest in that sign for the side of the vehicle at a minimum. But at some point, you're going to find an old van and you're going to put a wrap on it because it's a great investment to do that. Get the small vans. I highly recommend commercial vehicles. The ones that we ran for our fleets were the Ford Transit Connects, the miniature versions of the Transit, because it's small enough for everybody to feel comfortable driving, but it had the commercial weight capacity that we needed to fill them with samples and still have that safe stopping distance, suspension, etc., for that vehicle. The minivans that I've seen a lot of folks use typically don't have enough weight capacity to max out samples in the van. And for some folks, that's okay. If you want to run with a small sample count, you can. It's just in my experience, the most success comes from the least number of trips you have to go out to a customer's house. And you do that with a fully loaded miniature van that has something that serves that 80% of customer needs. It's got every product category sampled in it. And it's available at your fingertips, because when you're running them with an employee vehicle, the setup call is trying to figure out what do I need to load in the car versus having a van that's ready to roll 24/7 out to appointments. It's dramatically different when you can get there. So again, when you make that move, start small. Second, add shelves in the vehicle that allows for ease of access to each sample. As you see in the image here, putting in a rack system that allows for bookcasing, samples being stood on the edge. So you can pull any sample out without having to unbury it. It does a couple things. One, your samples don't get nearly as beat up. They also are much easier for folks to get to, so they're more likely to bring in more options for the customer than just the one that happens to be on top. Both of those are worth looking at. The last piece that putting in racking like this does for your vehicle, whether it's a well-built plywood box or something welded up in steel, as you see here, it creates safety for accessing all those products as well. In regards to the safety, it also needs that partition. So in the commercial small vans, you'll see there's tons of options out there for that safety divider, so that, God forbid, if somebody gets rear-ended and samples go flying, or somebody has to hit the brakes hard to avoid an accident, that the samples aren't hitting a driver or a passenger in that vehicle. If you're going to have them use their own vehicles, spend the money, buy a safety partition that fits their vehicle. The one you see here is like a universal fit, and put it in their vehicle anytime they're running appointments with samples in it, unless they're secured in the trunk, not in the back seat. I'm going to tell you that this is really important. I've seen, with, again, managing a very large fleet, over time, something's going to happen, and you don't want it to happen to your people. On expenses, the last thing I'll share here is you've got to review it weekly. Every single week, I'd be doing the math on what are our costs for customer acquisition and appointment acquisition. What are my overhead costs for my vehicles and samples, everything weekly, until it is consistently profitable. And then it's okay to push it back to a monthly review. But at least in the beginning, once a week, take the time, do the math. And if you don't have a system that allows you to track expenses like that really, really well, again, talk to your problem AM. There's things that we can share as tools that might be a great help. The 4 buckets that I'm going to recommend that you take a look at is overall profit, cost per appointment, close rate, average job size, and gross profit margin, all as a cost of sales expenditure. And then also you need to track that leads per sales rep every week, and make sure that your marketing investments are not just performing at the proper cost per lead acquisition, but the volume. And what you're going to find is there may be certain methods that you have a significantly higher cost per lead, and it's worth every penny because the quality of those leads may pay for itself very quickly. It's not about driving your cost per lead extremely low. It's about optimizing the volume of appointments you can get and getting rid of the junk. It just isn't something. So all of those total cost per appointment, close rate, AJS, and gross profit margin, and leads per sales rep, I'm literally suggesting every single week you look at those numbers, even if it's in a simple format, every week. So that's how I look at building processes. I look at building processes based on that customer funnel. from the first touch, how many customers can I reach? And are they the right customers that I can actually close business with? That quality and quantity of leads is top funnel. From there, close rate. How do I optimize against close rate opportunities? How do I grow average sales along with gross profit margin? And can I keep my expenses optimized? Because when I do all 5 of those, you can scale business rapidly. There are folks that can sit at $1 million or $2 million forever. And there are others that'll blow past it to 10 million in 5 years. The difference is they're pushing every button that I'm referencing here in a success funnel every month. They know where their numbers are, and they know how they can consistently crank up until they're hitting their KPIs at each level. I highly recommend that you take the time for this planning and processes to be built before you start throwing money at marketing and lead generation. Because once you've taken the time to go through what we've covered in these last 3 sessions, and your planning and execution, then it's just running the playbook from there. Again, you can change your playbook, but in the absence of a playbook and KPIs that are defined to measure success, your likelihood of not succeeding is significantly higher without that playbook. So I welcome any questions you might have around starting and scaling a shop at home business. We're going to go ahead and open it up for questions now. And please note, I might refer you back to session 1 and 2 content as part of this. But sure, appreciate any questions you might have at this time.
Thanks again, everybody, for jumping on and learning a little bit about how we create processes for shop at home. As I'd mentioned, I've had the luxury of working with hundreds of dealers that have successfully launched these programs. So I welcome any questions you may have. I know that MC is on with me, and she's had a few questions come in. So MC, if you want to go ahead and start putting those questions up for me, we'll get started. First question that came in is, how do we explain if the sample they ordered has a different name than our private labels? Great question. If you're using a private label and having a supplier send samples to your consumer, it's not going to match. So instead, have all those samples sent directly to you, where then you can use a label maker to fix that. Yes, it's an extra step. Yes, it costs a few bucks for mailing, but you never want to create doubt in your customer's mind, and you always want to control what the customer is able to shop. The moment they can shop, your ability to maintain that higher gross profit margin, which is critical in shop at home, just goes away. Yes, there's guys who successfully run shop at home with high volume and lower margins, but I'm here to tell you it's way easier to grow and scale a business as big as you want it, as long as you keep those higher margins, and that's only achievable if you private label. So you catch the sample, you apply your own label to it with an inexpensive label maker, and then you get it out to the customer's hands. Next question. Is a full vehicle wrap worth the investment, or would a partial wrap be a better ROI? I've seen lots of folks do a partial wrap. I'm not personally a big fan, because the single biggest place that works for customer connectivity is the back of your van. It's where everybody sees it sitting in traffic. The number 2 real estate space is the big panel sides, and your partial wraps typically cover just a very small portion of that, which if you're sitting in traffic with multiple lanes of traffic, you're just not going to see it. So the cost difference definitely is worth it to put the full wrap on. Don't spend the money to go up and over the ceiling of the vehicle. That can just remain plain white. I recommend using white vehicles for that purpose because they're a little cooler in the summertime, especially in southern states, to keep that roof white. But otherwise, use every inch of space you've got to market your brand in your market, with your phone number, website being very prominently displayed as an option there. Looks like we got another question that came in as well. Do you recommend, this one's from Francisco, do you recommend to do shop at home under the same retail flooring store name, or open a new business entity exclusively for shop at home? Again, another great question. I recommend using one business name always. The cost for marketing should have overlap across both your shop at home and your brick and mortar store if you're offering both. It's way more cost effective to have a single website, a single marketing campaign that drives both entities of your business. I do recommend, and we talk about the marketing budgeting in a couple of other sessions, but by offering differentiated messages and tracking the investments made in your brick and mortar messages versus your shop at home messages back to that one brand is important. But one brand is way easier to build and in a market than two with your marketing spend. So stick to one, track your messaging and costs separately to look at where you're getting your ROIs. That's pretty easy today with using different phone numbers and ads, different QR codes, those types of things to be able to create that tracking mechanism, but only use one. That looks like the 3 questions we've got so far today. If you do have any additional questions, please drop them into our chat, and I'm happily going to answer any questions you've got around shop at home. If not, I thank everybody. Sure appreciate you taking the time to invest in learning. Looks like we still got quite a few people on the call, so I'll stick around for another couple minutes. If you got questions, you can drop them in the chat. Yeah, MC, if you would go ahead and put my email up there as a follow-up. This is my email, neildaly@broadloom.com. If you want to shoot me an email instead of doing a question here in the group, certainly feel free. Happy to help you any way we can. If not, again, thanks everybody. Sure appreciate you taking the time to learn. This is the third of 3 sessions. Part 1 and 2 we have covered previously. You'll see it in our YouTube channel under the Broadloom YouTube channel. There's a section there dedicated just to this series for shop at home. And part 1 talked about why do shop at home and the planning processes for shop at home, all of that true startup components. Part 2 was about all the various resources that are needed to properly build and scale. Those items include, lots of various pieces and parts. So certainly encourage you to go back and check out part 1 and 2 if you're just now launching shop at home. And again, you'll see all of those on our YouTube channel. And let's see here if I can find that real quick, what that section's titled. Again, just go to YouTube and type in shop at home in the search inside of Broadloom, and you'll find it. Starting and scaling a shop at home would work too. Any other questions come in, MC? All right, then sure wish everybody a wonderful day, and give me a shout if I can be of any other help. Hope you amazing success should you start the shop at home business.